This is the Kingdom Movement Podcast, a place where we will explore, through conversation, how discipleship, theology, and community really can transform our world. Hey guys, this is Jake back with another episode of the Kingdom Movement Podcast. And so for the past couple of weeks, minus last week, again, I apologize, out of town, so I wasn't able to do this recording. But basically, we've been talking about the power of the upside down kingdom. Basically, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount manifesto of how to engage the power of God's kingdom through the practicing and living out of the kingdom culture or the kingdom way of engaging power, which is typically opposite of how this world operates in its power systems. So today we're going to be looking at how we can honor others in letting our words mean what they mean. So after last week, just kind of break it down, obviously for those who have listened, but we talked about defeating forbidden desire. So this is lust. This is the things of our heart that yearns for the things that we know are not good for us. How do we defeat that? So we talked about the different measures that Jesus basically gives. Take extreme measures to cut these things out of your life. Well, immediately after that, he basically goes on to talk about letting your words mean what they mean. And so he says in this verse, again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Do not swear by your head, for you cannot even make one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Wow, that is a powerful statement from Jesus. This idea that basically what we say, what we tell other people in our vowing to each other just simply needs to be yes or no. So there's a little bit to break down here. What does Jesus exactly mean? He talks about, swearing by God's throne or by earth or Jerusalem or even your own head. And basically it's this idea, this principle that when we are trying to convince someone, right? So what are oaths for? We give an oath to basically say, I will do what I'm telling you that I will do, right? So that's if in a law situation, you swear an oath, like a lot of times in the American court system, I'm not sure about Botswana, but people swear an oath on the Bible, right? So they place their hand on the Bible, and when they swear in the president, they place their hand on the Bible, and they basically make a vow that they will be honest in the sense of the court case, like they're going to tell the truth. They're not going to make up a story or lie, that their testimony is true so far as they know it. For the president, that they'll fulfill their vows to the American people, all these things. And so really it's this idea that Jesus is pointing at is like all these systems, these vow systems, these oaths in Jesus' day, swearing by the temple, right? Like this is the place, the great monument to God. Like you don't make an oath on that and then break it, or even the throne of God, or even your own head, right? Like we say, I swear on my mom, or I swear on my mother's grave is a saying in the States. And, you can contextualize that for our Botswana listeners. But we do this, and this is what Jesus is getting after, and what I found so fascinating. We do this in order, in a sense, to manipulate other people into entering into the oath with us. So Jesus here is really kind of striking at the heart of when he ends this kind of phrase by saying, let your yes be yes and your no be no. And I think really from the study that I've done on this, there's kind of two sides of this that I want to explore and really challenge us and myself deeply with this. And the two sides are this. The first one is a bit more basic. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. It's basically like you don't need to make these oaths. You don't need to swear. You don't need to do all these things. When you say yes, fulfill that oath, fulfill that vow. And when you say no, just be honest and say, no, I can't do that. And honestly, thinking back to our time in Botswana, this is a big thing, a cultural maybe like rubbing point for some people because of the honor and the shame that we can bring on others. And so I do think there is a little bit of like cultural contextualization. And what I mean by that is like learning how to do this in the culture that we're in a way that is still very transparent with people, but is willing to honor them at the same time. So maybe the example of what I'm trying to come up with for our Botswana listeners, I know it's maybe a bit rude to be super direct and just say, no, I'm not going to do that, or yes, I will do that. Sometimes there's a little bit of a wording, a way that we say something like, being less direct, like I might be busy that weekend, or if in your culture that typically means no, right? Like that means, hey, if someone says this, what they really mean is, no, I'm not going to come to that. I think that's, in Jesus' mind, an acceptable thing, as long as we are being honest with other people. And so Jesus really here is saying, let your character, who you are, the life that you live, in the way that you've been faithful to your word, so faithful to the things that you say, not wishy-washy, not making promises over here, and then breaking them when it's convenient. But when you say yes, let your yes be yes and your no be no. It's as simple as that. You don't need to swear on this or swear on that or make all these fluffy promises to convince someone that you'll keep your word. If you have to do that, then in a sense, Jesus is challenging us and saying, is your character even worthy of trust if you have to make all these promises in order for me to believe that you'll do what you say you will do? And so really, it comes down to that idea. Do what you say you will do. If you say yes, be honest about it. But also, in the same way, we honor other people by being honest with them and saying, no, I think that's beyond my capacity, or no, I'm just not going to be able to have the time to commit to that. And so having a yes or no answer and allowing it to just be what it is one, a reflection of our character. And if we are people that others can trust and rely upon when we give our word to something. Now, the other layer to it that I find really interesting is this idea of manipulation. So it's kind of the other way around. So that is the character of, do I honor other people and really fulfill what I say? I don't just back out when a better opportunity comes or when something seems inconvenient for me at the time. I let my yes be yes and I let my no be no, and I let that stand as my character. But the other side of it is this idea that we use oaths, we use language to manipulate people into doing what we want. So an example would be if someone really feels like, you can tell that they feel uncomfortable, they want to say no, or they're hesitant to enter into this agreement. A lot of times, in order to get people to do what we want, we'll make all sorts of promises. We'll swear on this, we'll swear on that. I promise nothing will happen if you do this, and I swear, if you get in trouble, I'm going down with you. And we can use these kind of oath language in our own day, whatever that language might be, and we can use it to manipulate people from making the decision that they would normally make. And so I think the flip side of this, when Jesus talks about let your yes be yes and your no be no, is also give the other person you're entering this agreement with an honest opportunity to choose the decision that they would choose on their own. In a sense, he's saying, don't manipulate someone into making an oath, an agreement, a pact with you, just because that that's what you want. Let that person enter into it freely. And I think this is huge in the sense of there a lot of resentment, a lot of bitterness, a lot of broken relationship can come from forcing people to do something and take on responsibilities, to take on pacts with us, simply because they feel obligated, not because they have a desire to do so. And really, I think about even in the sense of like a leadership role, or a student leadership role. If someone feels obligated because of an ask, you didn't really give your yes or no, you just did it because you felt like that's the thing that person wanted you to do, then you're not really being honest with your yes or no. So it can go both ways, right? It can be used to manipulate people into doing something that you want, but it can also be something that we say yes, but in our hearts we really want to say no. And really that can create negativity on both sides. One, we're doing something we really actually don't believe in. And then two, we're not giving a full effort to the person that we made the promise to. And we weren't really honest with them about really what our heart's decision was. And so I think it's really important for us as we evaluate what Jesus is saying here is that we don't manipulate other people with false promises or fluffy promises to get what we want. That we need to be honest with people, letting our yes and our no and what we really have in our hearts, that we're honest with the person that we're dealing with so that they can make a fair assessment of how they want to move forward. This isn't just in formal pacts or in courts or in lawsuits or whatever, but this is in everyday life. We use this kind of language in the regular interactions and friendships that we have with people. So I think it's really important that we take Jesus's words to heart. We listen to what he has to say, and we let our yes be yes and our no be no. And we don't need to swear on anything else, but we let our character hold itself up. So that's it for today on this little chunk, this little section. Again, we talked about we wanted to keep these episodes pretty short, so that, the average listener can really kind of take these bite-sized pieces and digest them for the next week. And so that's my challenge to you. How can you, in a practical way, just like we do in our groups, take this word to heart? Where are maybe some relationships or people or situations where you use kind of this manipulative oath language to get what you want? Or maybe there are people that you are saying yes, yes to, but really in your heart you mean no. And so I would just challenge anyone who's listening to evaluate and allow the Holy Spirit to help them to take on this new kind of language of honoring other people. All right, guys. Love y'all. We'll catch you next week. This is the Kingdom Movement Podcast, a place where we will explore through conversation how discipleship, theology, and community really can transform our world.